We are here with, I'm here with Dr. Omar, and we're talking about the current situation where we have Muslim communities, and some of the Muslims, they want to protest. Some of the African American Muslims, they want to protest. Other Muslim brothers, they're not so keen about protesting, and then some Muslim brothers, they're also in the police force. Some Muslim brothers feel that, oh, okay, you want to stand up for the rights of the Palestinians and the rights of others, but when it comes to African American Muslims, you're not like giving the same amount of attention. And so I was seeking Dr. Umar's advice on this case and how to understand the whole scenario that we're currently in. I'm sure he's been following it, and in fact, I know he's been following it. So inshallah, I'll let Dr. Umar say a few words about the scenario that we're in, and with Muslims being in a community where they are sometimes part of the law enforcement, sometimes they're part of, those people that are angry and feel like they're outcasted from society. What do we do in a situation like this?
You protect your home. You protect your home, okay? And when I'm thinking about this, I'm immediately brought to mind, what comes to mind immediately to me is Malcolm X. And now, in the days of Malcolm X, there was a different esprit de corps, a different group feeling in America. You can't compare the times, although there are some things which are worthy of mentioning here. Now, Malcolm X was an immaculately disciplined man, and those who followed him were also disciplined. Okay, and for a time he was involved with the Black Muslim movement of Farrakhan. And that whole thing has its origins in a criminal beginning, okay? And they are an offshoot of a Freemasonic venture whose task was to coordinate the Black Muslims under this umbrella and create a kind of organized opposition that was controlled. This was Stalinist, okay? And most of your Black Muslims, most of those who followed Farrakhan, have no idea. And Iblis and his people are so good at what they do that they speak in terms which involves maybe 95% of truth, okay? And then they stick in that other little percentage, which is lie, and people still go along with them. The first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about Louis Farrakhan is his spaceship. Okay.
Right.
And
that's right. That kind of, I don't know if this is off topic, but I've always seen that kind of sound like the rapture.
Yeah, it's a fantasy. Okay. Now, it may have some reality in the jinn dimension. Okay. But he doesn't separate that. The people who follow him don't make a discernment there. So Malcolm X, he knew something was wrong, and he knew something was wrong with Farrakhan's leader, the founder. I've forgotten his name now. But this man was just he was a liar and a criminal and a womanizer. And when Malcolm X found out about that, there was a separation that occurs naturally, and that's what righteous men do. When you are a righteous man and you see yourself associated with the wrong partner, you separate, okay? And Malcolm separated, and his immediate concern was to protect those people who followed him. And he knew that he was going to be murdered in anticipation of that. But I'm getting a bit off target here, but I just want to paint the
No, no,
picture.
no. It's good.
Malcolm,
Yeah.
Malcolm was one of the finest Americans ever produced. If you wanted to talk in terms of American, okay, and in terms of a Black American, Malcolm X outpaces almost all of them who are considered to be examples of a true Black man, a true Black American male. Okay, he's to be looked up to. This one, and you'll recall that one of his men was arrested by the police in Chicago, and Malcolm immediately marched his troop of followers down the street in a very disciplined fashion. They were all armed and they were all legally armed, and they demanded the return of that man. Now, today, if you tried to do something like that, you would probably get fired on. But in those days, the beast that was organizing the police department was not as how shall I say Bolshevicized. Okay, the police have become Bolsheviks under the Zionist flag now. They've been trained by Israelis, and
Yes.
they are trained to murder, and that's what happened with this Floyd fellow, God rest him, if I can permit it to say that. I don't know anything about him, but he was murdered. Okay.
Right.
And no doubt about that. And he was murdered by an Israeli trained policeman who worked for the beast of Al Darjal. Now, righteously, everyone is righteously angered about this, but you have to look at yourself and look at your situation and circumstances and realize, hey, we are not Malcolm X, okay? And we do not have a disciplined, ordered fellowship like he had, okay? And he was appointed, okay? You remember I told you that there are
Yes.
certain men who are appointed by God for a specific task at a specific time in a specific purpose, for a specific purpose. And this is who Malcolm was. And he brought the truth to everyone's attention. And a few of us, like myself, paid attention to him. And I then, as a result of his life, looked into the Farrakhan business and the Black Muslim movement, and came to realize that they are a criminal organization, albeit, you know, the mafia, Italian mafia is also a criminal organization, but their neighborhoods are the safest in New York City. At least they used to be. And so that's the same with the Black Muslims in Chicago, wherever they are under Farrakhan. Farrakhan is an enemy of God, but he's to be respected. Okay. You can't just go up against someone like that without being appointed to do so and without being ready to lose your life. Okay? So don't do it. Okay. Now, there will be elements of his party amongst your Ummah and amongst the Black men in your community, and they will be pushing for certain activities. And this will either be organized or it will just be a spillover from a mindset. Okay. Uh, None of these people are being guided. Okay. Everybody's just reacting. Okay. This is the kind of reaction that the organized subversives want to take advantage of. They know what buttons to push and who to push and where to push and at just the right time. And they don't want to waste a crisis. And so they'll push these buttons and then your people will react and then push you into a position where you have to, make some kind of a decision. Well, my decision, if I were you, would be to protect my home. Okay. And if you have any members of the community who are armed and legally armed, then you appoint them to stand around the masjid, make a public show of this,
Hmm.
okay, so that everyone knows that your men are disciplined and they are ordered and they are restrained, but they are ready,
Hmm.
okay? Because what people need to see, especially the women and the children and the criminals, they need to see that righteous men are ready, okay?
Hmm.
And righteous men need to show this readiness.
Hmm.
So what you have to do is strike a sort of a balance here, because you have righteous men. Many of them are probably young or younger, and they're full of their testosterone, and they're full of the outraged sense of justice. Okay, and they have to show that that there's some sort of order and discipline. Otherwise, you are just entering further into the chaos,
Hmm.
and the chaos will overtake you because you're not greater than the beast. Okay,
Hmm.
Allah is, but Allah has not appointed you to go out into the streets and make noise.
Hmm.
Okay, Allah has appointed you to bring order to the people who claim that they are living in His kingdom.
Hmm.
Okay? And I always come back to this
That's
kingdom
right.
thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And because it is a defining divine principle. Okay, without order, Iblis and his legions readily invest themselves in the disorder and make it worse.
Hmm.
Okay. So this one of the things that I really admired about Malcolm X is that even when he was wrong, he was right.
Hmm.
What I'm saying, that even when he was a follower of Farrakhan and this Black Muslim movement, he did things correctly.
Hmm.
Okay?
Hmm.
And when he found out he was in the wrong order, following the wrong leader, he left.
Hmm.
Okay? But he maintained his personal discipline and the discipline of those who followed him. Okay,
Hmm.
so this is my advice, especially to the members of the Black community who are associated with you and your work and your people there. Look to Malcolm X, and you have these Christians, and they're always saying, "What would Jesus do?" I'm saying, "What would Malcolm X do?"
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
now,
So
Malcolm X.
you have
Uh,
raised some very important questions in what you have said. The first thing is that you said that some people are looking for an opportunity through this crisis.
yes.
And that would also include some Muslims who see a crisis and see like Africa this injustice amongst the African American community, and they want to correct that injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think it's short-sighted to just only react in that time, and because you're not prepared for it from before?
Yes. There's no preparation here. You see, leaders and especially men in their community who protect their community are already prepared for such things.
Hmm.
They already have contingency plans. I don't know if you were in the military, but the military thinks like this. Okay, you've got to have a strategy. Politicians think like this. You have to have a strategy. If you're just going to react without any pre-planned strategy, you're a fool.
Hmm.
You're just a bloody fool, and you're leading a pack of fools. You might as well just become a mob, and that's
Hmm.
exactly what Iblis wants. Okay, he wants a reactionary mob because they're very incendiary. Okay,
Hmm.
and they will lynch the first scapegoat and then get their hands on. Okay, and this is what happens when things are out of order, when things are out of discipline. So, what you and your young men and your women and your children and your elders need to see is discipline.
Hmm.
Okay? They need to see a disciplined reaction here, and one that is sober,
Mm,
emotionally sober, and very, very clear, very confrontational, but silently so. Okay.
mm,
When you let me paint you a picture here about confrontational. Okay,
mm,
there's a dignified way in which one can confront an enemy.
mm,
Okay, or a potential enemy, because you don't always know. Okay,
mm,
I was in Germany as a young soldier many, many years ago, 40 years ago or so, and I had gone out for an extended walk. I took a bus all the way up to a mountaintop, and then I decided to walk down because it
mm,
was easier than climbing.
mm,
So I took the country path down through the mountain meadows and what the forest and everything. It took me the better part of 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours to climb down from the top of the mountain and reach the village where I was living in at the time. Along the way, I encountered the biggest dog I've ever seen.
okay.
Okay. This dog was as big as I, and I'm 5'7". I weighed about 150 pounds at the time, and this dog was just as big as I was. And the dog sat there in front of the path that I was walking, and he didn't move. He just sat and blocked my path. And
Mm,
so I stopped. And then I saw the dog turn his head slightly to the left, and I looked to my right, and there was the shepherd.
mm,
And now I didn't see the sheep. The sheep were scattered in the meadow there, and the grass
mm,
was tall. So I looked at this shepherd, and this shepherd was silent. He didn't say a word. He looked at me. He didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He didn't say anything. Okay, he stood there. This man was about 6'3",
mm,
weighed in well over 200 pounds, was
mm,
dressed, it was winter, so, and he was dressed in one of these great big bear-like shepherd coats. It was probably made of sheepskin, all tied together, several. And he carried this big shepherd staff. I mean, I've always seen them in the books, and in the
right.
movies, but here was one in person. And there he was with his staff,
Mm,
his immense presence,
mm,
and his dog. Okay.
right.
And there I was, completely and totally at their mercy. Okay.
Mm,
Now, the man didn't say anything to me. He never spoke. He never moved except to nod to his dog and assent.
mm,
And this was just like a little shake of the head. I can't shake my head. People look at me sometime on the movie, and you see I'm going back and forth. It's because my neck is frozen. I cannot I cannot turn my head. I cannot shake my head. So he gave this dog a little nod, something like that, and the dog ran off. Okay. And then the shepherd turned, and that was it.
mm,
Okay. And I was free to go my way.
mm,
So I'm telling you this story because that's the kind of presence and that's the kind of manhood that is needed here. You
mm,
see, that moment was prepared. The dog knew what to do. The shepherd knew what to do. They had a coordinated communication system already in order, and they confronted the danger, decided that I was not a danger, and allowed me to leave.
mm,
However, if they had determined that I was a danger, I would have become meat.
right.
Okay. Now, this is the kind of manhood that your black Muslims need to present. And if they
Mm,
don't have it, tell them to sit down and shut up.
mm,
Okay? Because that's what Malcolm X did when he marched down the street and got his man out of jail.
mm, mm,
Okay? There was no reaction, and there was no reactionary nonsense. There was no sense of anxiety,
Hmm.
everything was controlled, and they were all at the ready to back it up with bloodshed, if
Hmm.
need. Okay, so if you don't have that kind of discipline, don't even talk. Don't even talk about it. All right,
Right.
you're a bunch of children in want of discipline, in want of order, in want of the divine order.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, this is what the police and the military have on their side. They have an element of this discipline. It is working for Satan. And of course, we know that Satan is a servant of Allah.
Hmm.
Now, let me bring this to you perfectly clear and to your listeners perfectly clear. Oh my God, Iblis is a servant of Allah. So that means our enemies are serving God? Yes, they are. And why are they doing that? Because you aren't.
Hmm.
Okay?
Actually, this is
If,
mentioned in the Quran in Surah Bani Israel, Surah Isra.
yes.
I think it is the 17th surah, the surah before Surah Al-Kahf.
Ah,
And Allah says, "Ba'athna alaykum," and we raised against you,
yes.
ibadan lana, our servants,
Mm-hmm.
meaning
Yes.
against you,
Very
the
glad.
Muslims. And this
Yes.
is talking about at the time of the prophets of the Old Testament. And so this
Mm-hmm.
is after Moses and after David, after
Mm-hmm.
Moses, David,
Mm-hmm.
when they were put into the desert for 40 years to travel, and
Mm-hmm.
then their civilizations. And then Allah says at that time, when they started to disobey, بَعَثْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ إِبَادًا لَنَا أُولِي بَأْسٍ شَدِيدٍ. And so when the Assyrians came from the north
Mm-hmm.
and the Babylonians came, Allah is
Mm-hmm.
calling the Babylonians here our servants because they had ceased to be the servants of Allah.
Yes.
أُولِي بَأْسٍ شَدِيدٍ, with great warring power.
Yes.
بعث عليكم عبادا
Mm-hmm.
لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار, and they entered even your houses.
Yes.
كان
Yes.
وعدا مفعولا, and this was a promise that was to be fulfilled.
Yes. That is, and this is what has happened to the Palestinians. So stop with all this pity nonsense. Okay?
Mm.
I'm tired, I'm sick and tired of hearing the Muslims try to blame the Jews. Okay? It's
Okay.
their own fault.
Mm.
It's their own fault, and the Quran makes this very,
It does.
very
It
clear.
does.
Okay? So I don't want to hear it. As soon as I get into a conversation with somebody like that, I just shut up. I don't I excuse myself.
Mm.
I won't enter into it unless they're prepared to learn the lesson. Okay?
Mm.
And this lesson is very clear. I've just made it clear to you. And I'll give you another example from my own life's experience. I was once the assistant director of the emergency room in in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, and this is predominantly a black community, the entire island,
Mm.
although it is a CIA outpost and it is a drug running center. This is
Mm.
one of the places where the Epstein people were, and all sorts of corruption was going on there. But in the middle of this island, there's a little Portuguese village.
Mm.
And this Portuguese village is predominantly white. Matter of fact, it's 100% white in the middle of this entire black community, with your Jewish element there. They're receiving the big cruise ships and whatnot. They come and they had a very nice deep water port. And I went into the bar at the Portuguese village one day to eat lunch. And I'm sitting at the bar having my beer and a sandwich or something. I don't know, sandwich and fries. And this Portuguese fisherman sits down next to me and he's having his luncheon. We enter into a conversation and the niceties, were exchanged. And then after a while, I said, after we finished eating, I asked, he said, I want to ask you a serious question.
Mm.
And I said, I noticed that there are no black people in this little part of the island.
Mm.
And I said, they cause a lot of trouble just about everywhere else, but here, there's no element of that. I said, why is that? And he looked at me very soberly and he said, because they know we will feed them to the sharks.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, these are the words of a man who is in control of his manhood. And why is he in control of his manhood? Well, because he's living in an organized system where other men are helping him to control his manhood
Hmm.
for the right reasons.
Hmm.
Okay. And in this case, the reason is defense. Defense against what? Defense against a bunch of ignorant troublemakers. Okay.
Hmm.
And yes, I'm saying that, dear black people, because that's what they are.
Hmm.
You know, if when they're not disciplined, okay, they're just a bunch of troublemakers. And
Hmm.
not only that, they're a bunch of drunken, drugged up troublemakers. Okay. And we all know that. And I know from having personal experience of working with black people, even at the professional level, that they have a gonad problem.
Hmm.
Okay. These men cannot control their gonads.
Hmm.
Okay. They're jumping over each other's shoulders at each other's women all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is this not true?
Yeah,
Yes.
and
This,
you know, I've noticed people that are oppressed. This
yes.
raises a very important question
Mm-hmm.
about the dynamics of a group of people that are oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that when one of them is given a position, he becomes selfish for that position
Yes.
and doesn't want other people in his community to reach that position because it
Yes.
will not, like, he feels threatened
Yes.
by having a competition. And I
Yes.
think the African American community in America has done
Mm-hmm.
that. Its own leadership has done that to its own people.
It's very
Where
infantile. It's very purient. Okay. They have not matured. Now, I bring up the example of Malcolm X because this is the example of a mature black man.
right, because Malcolm X wouldn't hesitate to put somebody is in his own place even
Yes.
if there was such an opportunity.
Yes.
He
Yes.
wouldn't be thinking about, okay, how can I stay the leader of these people? And oh my God, this
No.
guy's gonna come as
No,
my
not at all.
competition.
Not at all. They're black American males, and you listen to me carefully because they know what I'm saying and about to say is true. They've got a big chief problem. Okay,
Mm.
they all run around wanting to be the big mullah. To
But
be
we
the
have the
big.
same problem as the Muslims too.
Yes, yes. This is the point I'm getting to. You see, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about undisciplined manhood. Okay.
Mm.
Now, ladies, listen to me, okay, because last time we spoke about polygamy and everything, I was maybe a bit hard on you, but I'm not hard on anyone without being backed up by the truth, okay?
Mm.
And so this is a problem of the undisciplined male, and this is why your women are turning to feminism,
Mm.
okay? Wielding your gonads is not going to tame a woman.
Mm.
No, this won't do. You cannot tame the shrew just by swinging your weapon.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't work that way. You have to be disciplined. You have to be ordered. You have to be able to stand there with just a look in your eye, and that look is enough to inspire fear, because the fear is not of you, it is of God. It's of God's justice then and God's anger and wrath that might fall on you if
Mm.
you don't watch your step.
Wow,
Okay,
that's very interesting.
so this is what it is.
Bringing that to aligning yourself with the harmony of the divine.
Yes,
The Prophet said that remember Allah to the point where people, when they look at you, it reminds them of Allah,
yes, yes.
right? When you
Yeah.
become part of that divine order, it's almost they don't
Hmm.
even know why, but they're reacting
They're
in a
reacting to
certain
it.
way.
Okay,
Yes.
and they don't know why, and sometimes a man himself may not be aware, that he's acting in divine order, because it is fitra. Okay? When fitra is not suppressed, then a man will automatically develop and grow and act according to this tree, this fitra tree. Okay? When it is suppressed, then you have a problem, because this natural development, this natural evolution of the personality and the maleness is not allowed to occur. And when it doesn't occur in a disciplined fashion, in a natural fashion, it becomes distorted. And that's what you're dealing with in your community now. You're dealing with this distortion. Okay? So your task, and the task of every leader, is to reach into the heart of those who God has placed under your right hand, and to bring forth the fitra, to draw it out. This is what the prophet did, and he did it naturally. He did it just by virtue of his manhood, by virtue of his being, by virtue of his pure intention. Okay. And this draws it out, so that, and don't think that this is a thing of leadership and you have to submit that. No, it is a mutual thing. When a man is appointed to be the leader, well, he cannot fulfill his appointment, he cannot fulfill his profession, if you will, without the followers. They need each other. Okay? So this is a mutual thing that happens. And when you have a man of this stature in the community, generally speaking, he's quiet. Okay? And he is reserved. He minds his own business. And you'll recognize these men, because you will be very cautious when you knock on their door. And you will not knock on their door without good reason. And you will have this cautionary position, because fitra in you is already drawn out, and you know that this man is instinctively this man is living according to divine order, but you may not be able to say what it is. But that fear is already there. You see, this is a man you don't want to make angry, and not because he's a criminal, but because he is disciplined and he's strong and he's capable of making you into meat. Okay? So I'm trying to.
So what do we do? What do we in this situation? There's a lot of Muslim brothers that are also working for law enforcement in this environment that we're in. A lot of Muslims. They're in every Muslim community. There are one or two people. They are part of law enforcement. What should their attitude be, considering the situation, and what should they be careful about?
Well, they're compromised to begin with, okay? Because they're already in the uniforms of the enemies of Allah, okay? And this does not put them in a good position at all. And if they don't want to admit this, then they have a problem, not just with Allah, but with their own heart. Okay. It's one thing to be in denial. It's quite another thing to realize that you're in the enemy's camp. And then you have to say, okay, why am I here? And the only one to answer that will be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a thing of inspiration to you. Now, I thought about this problem in the past, and so, as I said, I'm already prepared to answer.
Right. I want to share with you a verse of the Quran that I felt dealt with this issue.
Yes.
When Musa came, and he went to Fir'aun and said, "Let my people go." So one of the things that Fir'aun said to Musa is, "What do you talk? We fed you and we gave you everything you wanted. And so Musa retorted by saying, "Tamunnu alayya, you count favors upon me personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
وَعَبَّدْتَ بَنِي Israel, and all my people have been enslaved."
Mm-hmm.
And so the point I'm trying to make here is that I have seen in my own experience
Mm-hmm.
that when the niceties of politics happen,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if somebody is naive, they may feel, oh, they're doing us a lot of favors, or they may feel that they're not that bad, or something like this, where their
Mm-hmm.
heart inclines towards them, not realizing that, of course, things are nice when things are nice. The real
Mm-hmm.
test comes
Yes.
when things are not nice and what will happen at that time. But I only wanted to bring and share with you this phrase, تَمُنُّ عَلَيَّ, you should count favors upon me, Moses said. وَعَبَّدْتَ بَنِي Israel, but you've enslaved all of Bani Israel. Now, when people are oppressed, and some of them, they get positions, and some of them get it in the law enforcement, they
Mm-hmm.
feel very indebted almost to the master. Uh,
Yes.
and that same problem of that, I forget what technical words you used, where everybody's being selfish for their position and not wanting anyone else to take it, also is part of that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and Yeah, so you're saying that they're already in a compromised position and they need to realize this at the very least.
Yes, and they need to realize this and stop pretending it is not what it is. Okay?
Mm,
They are working for the system of Al Dajjal. They are not working for the community. They are working for a police force which is run by corporations, and these corporations are all incorporated, and they are under obligation to serve the United States of America. And the United States of America is itself a corporation that was
mm,
established in 1876, and it serves the Vatican Corporation. Okay, everyone with a birth certificate has a bill of lading that is traded on the stock exchange by private companies. Okay, so that tax dollars and all of this thing, it goes into an accounting, and you're just chattels to these people. Okay, and this is not the kingdom of Allah. This is not divine order. There's nothing divine about it,
mm,
except that Allah has permitted it as a judgment against the people who claim to be His, but
mm,
are not acting in divine order. Okay?
mm,
So that's what's taking place. So don't pretend it's otherwise. Now, you come out of that, and we'll come out of these clouds that Dr. Omar is painting here of abstractions, which actually represent reality, because the legal obligations here are what control the reality. Okay?
mm,
The legal obligation of these corporations, which are pretending to be political entities, which are
mm,
actually agencies of these corporations, they don't represent the people. They are representing these corporate interests. Okay,
right.
and these corporate interests are agents of our Dajjal, which go way, way back to Persia. And this is
Mm,
why the Prophet said, become Muslim or you're going to be responsible for the sins of the Magi. And
mhm.
then, what was it? It was a Hanbal, or I forget now which one of the
I
ancient
think Imam
masters.
Ahmed bin Hanbal you quoted before, yes.
He said something about the nations are become corrupt because of the sins of the Magi and the lies of the initiates and the and the subversion of the lovers. Okay,
Mm,
and this subversion of the lovers has everything to do with divine order. It has
mm,
everything to do with marriage. Okay,
mm,
because the lovers are reflecting Allah's love for us.
mm,
Okay, that's what it is. And when that is betrayed, then this invites corruption.
mm,
Okay, and now everyone is running around, as you said, looking for their own position, looking to preserve their own position rather than looking to preserve the kingdom. Okay,
mm,
and of course, Allah says, okay, Iblis comes and see, I told you, I told you. Okay, And Allah says, well, of course, have at it, but my servants you cannot touch. Okay? Now, how do we know who his servants are? Well, his servants, what do they manifest? They manifest discipline. Okay? They are like the shepherd I met on the mountain. Okay? They manifest discipline. What is this discipline? How can you tell it? How can you recognize it? It's something called as-sakina, isn't it? It's peace and security, and you carry that wherever you are.
So this means that even in this chaos, the true believers would not be reacting to anger.
Right.
So that would be very hard for some Muslims who are African American Muslims. They come with a certain history, and they have come to Islam because they find Islam as the just religion that equalizes race. The black and the white and the others, we are all equal. So that's, African Americans didn't accept Islam in America out of a philosophical quest, but more so out of a sense of justice, in a sense. And so when they enter Islam, then they're looking for these solutions, but these solutions are not immediate. They're like long-term solutions. And and so maybe a lot of young brothers, they feel why can't we do something right now? What would you say to them?
Well, you can't change this political system, so forget about that. If you're looking for justice in the street, forget it. That is a pipe dream. That is exactly what Iblis wants you to think. Okay? No, justice begins at home. It begins at home. The kingdom begins in the bedroom. Okay? It begins at Mama's feet. And we've talked about Mama's feet before. Mama's feet have to be under the feet of a righteous man. So you see, this is all one big continuum. This is Tawheed. You can't just extract one element and then blow it up into Islam. It doesn't work that way. So if you want to establish this justice that you're talking about, you begin with yourself. You begin with the cleansing of the heart, like the authentic Sufis discuss. This is what Malcolm X did. He cleansed his heart constantly. And this was not a Sufi. Okay?
Right.
This was just a good man. Okay? It's what good men do.
So what do we say about in the African American community? Then there are stores owned by Muslims, by Arabs, by other in the corner stores. The mama papa stores in the African American community. There are a lot of the corner stores are owned by Muslims, and the African American community feels, well, these Arabs or these Muslims, they came in and they got their stores here and we're buying from them and we're making them rich and they're in our neighborhood. And now we have a crisis. And one of the brothers, Muslim brothers, that was unjustly taken to prison, he's hearing the cops talk. And one of the things he hears them say is that, oh, the Arabs, they got their guns in case somebody comes into the stores. But they're not going to help them in the streets, kind of thing. So a lot of the African American community, let's say you have a masjid and then you have a community, and then you have these corner stores. And this exact scenario is across America in many places, in California, in New York City, so on and so forth. And so you have the corner stores owned by Muslims, and Muslims, for various reasons, have given themselves also a bad name as store owners, as business people in the community. But now in this crisis, it's double bad, because it's like you were bad anyway, but now you're like worse bad because you're not supporting us. You should be understanding of our plight, at least, and support us in some shape or form. And so some people, some Muslim African Americans are like, see, Islam is getting a bad name. We have to do something to show them that Islam is not bad. Now, what do you do in a scenario like that?
That's still reactionary, you see. There's no preparation here. Nobody made any plans, any righteous plans based on akhlaq and adab to prevent this. So the chickens are coming home to roost, okay? And you can't stop them. What happens when if the horses are let out of the paddock? How can you stop them? You can't. When the buffalo start to stampede, you can't stop them, okay? No, this is not a situation that can be corrected, okay? Not by any reactionary position. And that's what they're talking about. They're saying, oh, we've sinned all these many years, and that's what they're leaving out. You see, they're leaving out the sin part, okay? And they're trying to act righteous too late. You listen to me, you Muslim fools, those of you who are pretending to be men. You're leaving this out, aren't you? This is selective thinking. This is all part of the denial syndrome. You know? So you've been selfish all these years, and maybe you've had an element of discipline, and maybe your intentions were partially good. But when the Prophet entered Medina, and he said, you have to fear God, you have to obey him, and you have to remember him in all things, okay? You can't just do a little bit of it. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to fear God and obey God and remember God here, but not here. You can't be like that, okay? So if you compartmentalize Islam, this is what happens when the stampede begins, and the stampede is coming, and you're in the wrong place. This is why the Prophet said, come out of her, go live in the mountain. You can't fix this. It can't be fixed, all right? There's no preparation. There's been no discipline. It's all been selfish, okay? They've been protecting their selfish positions. And so the people in the street who have been their customers all these years don't have respect for them because the attitude that they had was not the attitude of the shepherd that I met on the mountain. Okay? It was the wrong attitude. It was the attitude of a selfish man who doesn't care about the sheep and who doesn't care about the welfare of the stranger. Okay, see, I was a stranger to that shepherd. His concern was protecting me from the dog in case I was innocent. Okay? And after about looking at me for about 15 to 20 seconds, he determined that I was an innocent outsider, an innocent just passing through, an innocent stranger, and so he let me go. Okay? Now, your people do not have this control. They do not have the discipline, and all of a sudden they want to start acting as if they have it? No, it's too late.
Too late.
It's too late. Stop pretending, okay? You've got a crisis on your hand, and now you have to look to your own, okay? Because you've not protected them beforehand, you see? So now is not the time to go out into the street and try to pretend to be the shepherd, because you're not. You were never the shepherd, okay? Now is the time to repent. Now is the time for tawbah. Now is the time for guidance. And now is the time to ask Allah, okay, Allah, we were wrong. Forgive us. Now tell us what to do. And then you have to accept the consequences. You have to accept the consequences. Because if you don't, this judgment, because that's what it is, it's a judgment, which is falling upon you, will just come later, and it will come in a worse form. You see? Because these are spiritual principles, these are spiritual laws. They cannot be evaded. Ibn Khaldun made this clear, the Prophet made this clear, and I'm now working on a series of lectures to try and make this clear for the people, because No one is teaching these things, these principles in the madrasas. They're not being taught. You're a
mm,
graduate of Al-Hazar, and they were not even taught there. They were
yes.
brushed over, you know, as if they weren't important. Because we've
Mm,
got to get to the Sharia, we've got to get to the Maqasid, because that's where the real meat is. That's nonsense. The real
mm,
meat is what I've just told you. The Prophet said when he entered Medina, that's the
mm,
real meat, and
mm,
it is Tawheed. So this discipline that is lacking now is now slapping you in the face. They're throwing down the gauntlet as if they're the king's dukes, you see,
mm.
and they never were.
And this actually raises a very good point. Had we been doing what we were supposed to do, then
Yes,
we would have been ready for this crisis,
yes,
and we would have actually been able to present people with Islam in this crisis and the Islamic solutions to things.
yes, yes,
But because we were not ready and we were not preparing, and we were, as you said, sinning, being
yes,
selfish,
yes,
now we are in the predicament that we're in. And so
yes,
now if the boat's going to sink, we're all sinking with it.
yes. This is the Titanic going down. Okay.
Yes.
As I said last week, that's what's taking
Yep.
place. Whether it's in the bedroom or in the corner store or in city center, it doesn't matter. They're all going down. Okay. And I heard bits and pieces and snippets of some of your videos the last few days, and you're touching on all of this, you know. And somebody's bringing you a little piece here, and then somebody else is bringing you another piece there. And I'm saying, yes, this is what's taking place. You're seeing it, and there's this element now where the crisis is being purposely exacerbated. Bricks are being planted. You have these Antifa thugs, whom I would shoot on sight, entering the communities where they don't have any relationship with anybody, just to cause
Yeah.
trouble. You know, so
Yes.
this is taking place. This is all organized. This is organized by subversive elements who work within the government. They are
Mm,
called the shadow government or the deep state. And these people who call themselves Antifa, you know, outside of their very top leadership, they don't even know what they're doing. They're just a bunch of
mm.
fools, okay, given some
Yeah.
cause,
Yeah.
okay, and they're dangerous because there's nothing worse than a idealistic fool. Okay, that's what's taking place here. The only thing worse than that is an Islamist who thinks he's doing God's work. Okay, that's a
Mm,
pious fool. Okay, an ignorant pious fool. And some of your sheikhs have made this very clear in their academic positions and in their classical traditional papers. Okay,
mm,
over the centuries. The worst, the most dangerous man on the face of the earth is an ignorant man pretending to be pious.
mm,
Okay, he's on the same footing with the hypocrite. Okay,
mm.
so in power. Okay,
Yes.
and and that's what you're dealing with. You've got them above you, around you, okay. All of these people are there. So my advice, dear brother, is you find the shepherds, you find the quiet shepherds amongst your flock, and you stand with them, and they become the example. Okay, and that shepherd was not concerned about another part of the mountain. He was not concerned about what was going on down in the village. He was not concerned about the king's castle at the top of the mountain. He was concerned about his sheep
Mm,
and their safety, and whether or not I posed a threat to that safety, and whether or not his dog was going to eat me.
mm,
Okay, so this is the kind of presence that is needed at this moment.
mm,
You don't look at solving all of these other problems; they can't be solved.
mm,
You cannot solve the black male's problem. That's an old problem. It's due to, you know, generations and generations of the absence of fathers. We all know that. Anyone who studied the history, they know what's going on. And their women know most of all. They know more than the male does about
Mm,
what's taking place. So they are not going to find comfort or solace in you or in your religion.
mm,
It only comes from within
mm,
because the spita is within.
mm,
And if you can't bring it out, then don't waste your time with them. They're
mm,
looking for something else. They're already following a strong delusion. And that
mm,
delusion will sink you, and it will sink the little boat that you've got your family and your friends in. Okay.
mm,
So don't be concerned about them. Uh, and I'm sorry to say this, but I have my experiences with them, even at the professional level. I could
mm.
tell you stories there that I was shocked when I found out. But maybe I should just mention it now that I brought it up, because I worked at a hospital once where there were 14 doctors. I was the only white doctor amongst them. They were all black men and a couple and two black women, two couples, two black couples. All the others were individual black doctors. One couple was from Jamaica, and they were the finest couple there. And this Jamaican doctor was the director, the medical director of the hospital, and this was out west in Arizona, and it was a government-run hospital. Okay, these black men were damn near over the table at every board meeting, ready to strangle each other. Okay,
Mm,
and not only that, they were trying to seduce each other's wives, including mine, behind
mm,
each other's back, all the time. It never stopped. The only man who wasn't doing that was the Jamaican man, and he was the
mm,
son of a pastor, Christian pastor. Okay,
mm,
so what I'm saying is that this black community has a problem of undisciplined manhood.
mm,
Okay, it's very undisciplined, and the
mm.
Muslims have the same problem. It's
Yeah.
not as pronounced, okay, but it is there. It
Mm,
is there. Okay, Muslims have a little bit more discipline, a little bit, because they're at least reading the right book. Okay,
yeah.
so this problem is is endemic amongst the community, and it's not going to be solved by you trying to correct the sin of the mom and pop grocery shop. Okay,
Mm,
they're at risk now because they placed themselves at risk. If they had not placed themselves at risk, the angels would already be establishing an aura around their shop, and no one would go near it. They would be
mm,
protected, you see. In other words, what happens here in a situation like this is Allah makes you invisible to those who would bring you harm.
mm,
They don't see you. They, and if they do see you, they drop their weapon because they
mm,
stand in awe, and they don't even understand why it is that it happens. Okay, this is a metaphysical reality. This
mm,
is this is a response. This is in response to the spiritual laws that the prophet defined when he entered Medina:
mm,
obedience, fear, and remembrance. Okay,
mm,
if you are carrying these all the time, you don't have to worry about these situations. Maybe it's like, you do nothing more than what happens when a hurricane is coming. You go board up the windows. Okay, that's about it. But you don't get all excited. And why are they excited? Because they know that they are hated. They made themselves hate it.
mm.
Okay, didn't they? Come on, be honest.
Yeah.
They made themselves hated. They made themselves despised because they acted arrogantly.
Mm,
Yeah, they acted arrogantly. They acted out of pride, and pride is the first sin. and Adam did not commit it, Iblis committed it. Okay? So these are principles which people have forgotten. And these principles live on whether or not, and they work out in our lives whether or not we think of them or not. It's better to think of them and to remember them. But nobody is talking about these. Nobody is preaching. See, I'm preacher here now. I'm preaching in a certain sense because I was a preacher before, and it's in me to do this. But I've been to many, many mosques and many, many khutbahs and meetings and whatnot, and I've only heard one or two real preachers amongst the Muslim ulema. Only a couple. And one man I know as a preacher is afraid to preach. And he's the best one I've heard. He gave one khutbah. I said, "Oh my God, you should be doing this every week." Okay. And he has his reasons. We'll not go into that. But you understand what I'm saying here, brother?
Alhamdulillah, I think I do, yes.
These are not problems that can be solved. Okay. So you'll find the shepherds in your flock and you stand with them and you organize yourself because these men are disciplined already. They can be organized. But don't think that you can lord it over them. No. They are like the companions. You know, even the prophet had to back off when his companions disagreed with him. Okay? And don't forget this principle. You know, this happens. Okay? So you find out who these shepherds are. The man whose door you want to knock on, you know, you think about twice before you knock. You say, why am I going to speak with this man? Okay. This is you find the men that you do not want to disappoint for the right reasons. These are the men that you want to stand with. And then you choose, okay, these are your real warriors. Okay. So you find these men, you dig your foxhole, and then you make your stand. And if you go down together. Alhamdulillah. Okay? But at least you do it with peace and security and no mental chaos. Okay? So if I give you anything today, dear brother, let me give that to you as a word of wisdom. Okay? To help carry you and those close to you through this storm. Because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
It will only get worse. Even after this wave calms down, it will come again. Because these problems do not go away. So I hope that was helpful for you, dear brother.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Very helpful and very assuring in some ways. And inshallah, till next time. I really enjoyed today's session too. So I think we're going to switch between marriage and then politics, and then politics and then marriage.
We'll go back to marriage. Yeah, we'll go back to marriage next time. Yeah, I'll give the women another crack at me. Okay.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.